Welcome to this week's episode of Coffee with a Journalist, brought to you by the team at OnePitch. Are you looking for a more efficient way to find and pitch the right journalists? Head to our website at onepitch.co to learn more. Our guest on today's episode of Coffee with a Journalist is Tim Crino. Tim is a senior editor at Inc., where his coverage focus is on cybersecurity and data privacy. He also oversees Inc.'s book reviews, collaborates on strategies for Inc. Video, and edits Inc. Insider, which is a print section that curates expert advice from Entrepreneurship's brightest. During the episode, Tim discusses how PR folks can get in his email's good PR folder and what that is, how he vets angles and news to cover, as well as how he stays organized and on top of his stories.
Welcome, everyone. This is Coffee with a Journalist. I'm Beck Bamberger. And what we do on our little podcast here is bring real live reporters, editors, freelancers, writers, all the wonderful friends of journalism to tell us what they cannot stand about publicists, basically, but also how we can be better connections with our journalist friends, because while they may not be our friends, we need to work together. And that is the goal of our little show here. With us today, speaking of perhaps friends we can make, is Tim Crino. Like Reno, he just told me. He's the senior editor of Inc. magazine. And welcome, Tim. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Tim, you've been at Inc. for a while. This is good to know and see.
Yeah. For a millennial, I think particularly surprising, but I'm coming up on my 7-year anniversary.
I see that. Real quick, for those maybe as not familiar, I do this now more often. What would you say encompasses the scope for Inc.'s content?
It's actually pretty simple. We cover entrepreneurship and Main Street. So basically any business that, like our audience ideally is really any business leader, entrepreneur, or aspiring entrepreneur. And we have a particular focus on businesses and entrepreneurs that are based in the United States that are privately held. So public companies, we don't necessarily speak to them, but we might speak about them
here and there.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Google was a startup once, Facebook was a startup once, and there's lessons that they have that we can plumb. But I guess the TLDR, if I could sum it up succinctly, is Inc.'s job is to inspire, educate, and entertain the entrepreneurs in the United States.
In the United States, that's wide, but yes, focused. I like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the global community is of entrepreneurship is exciting, but we are a small, nimble team, so we can't cover everything.
There you go. Which is why you should get the right pitches to your inbox, Tim. Before we get into your inbox, though, for you now specifically, and this is always something I think to mention or look into with editors, you are writing pieces, but of course you dispatch pieces to be written by your team. So how do you think about the content that you want to do? For instance, while I'm looking at your author page, you have a piece on giving feedback. You have something on like Navy SEALs, psychological things. You like data privacy, though, as well. So how would you describe what your content area is?
Like the things that I write about?
Yes, you as the editor, yes, versus, I send this to one of my freelancers.
Yeah, it's two things, really. One, is this something that it would be fastest, easiest, and most efficient for me as an editor to just write this? Is it something that the brand needs, or that it's just sort of like a company objective that, I happen to be the person who can get it done fastest and easiest? And then the other thing is I have a few preferred areas of interest that I like to cover when I have time for a really well thought out, well-reported enterprise story. Those tend to be the ones that are about something like a topic area that I feel passionate about. So
pick and choose a little bit.
You can choose a little bit, but broadly, like cybersecurity and data privacy is where a lot of my expertise lies. So that, and I dabble in healthcare, I dabble in climate tech, city lab stuff, things that interest me. But as an editor, I don't really have like a super tight focus in terms of writing. I guess
that's so nice.
Yeah,
that's so
I kind of get to do either what I want or what I need to do, which is good.
Hey, that's a good place to be, though, in any workplace. What I want or what I need to do. Yes. Yeah. So then your inbox, tell us how crowded it is in there with pitches.
I mean, it's a lot, you know.
Yeah, because you also have probably freelancer pitchers too. You don't just have publicists. Well, you tell us. You tell us what's in there.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's a lot of publicists. I don't think there's a lot of freelancers in the traditional sense that are pitching me. I don't really see that very often. I
Hmm.
run our book review desk. Our little spin on it though is we ask authors to not review their own books, but to tell us a little bit about how they think, like why entrepreneurs should read their books and what
Oh.
bits might be relevant to that to
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
So I get honestly a lot of pitches about books, but otherwise it's mostly publicists. I don't really get freelancers saying, "Hey, I'm a freelancer. I've worked at these places. Hire me for this." I do get a lot of people. I guess they're people. They might be bots, but they're
Who knows
demanding
these days?
basically
Yeah.
like backlink requests, or they'll be like, "I need to
Oh,
post this content on your site," and so a lot of spam, I guess, is what I would call it.
yeah.
Frankly. Yeah,
You're the first person I think who's told us this on those SEO link building people shenanigans. Yeah. Huh.
yeah. I have this
Ugh.
theory
Tell us.
5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
When I started out, I was the assistant managing editor. So my email is somewhere on the site and I can't find where it is anymore, but it's somewhere on like some media kit or some public, like I'm basically listed as the public point of contact.
Oh. Oh
So
boy.
I get a lot of spam, unfortunately.
Oh, geez. Oh, geez. Okay. Now, what do you do to maintain your sanity with your inbox? Or maybe there is none. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. First of all, there is none. I just completely ignore it. Uh,
Okay.
no, I'm kidding. For
Oh,
the
I was
most
going to
part,
say, that's
yeah,
bold. I love it.
yeah. For the most part, I actually do just ignore it during the day. A lot of the actual work that happens during the day for us happens in Slack.
Hmm.
And like once a week, once every 2 weeks, I'll go through and do like a full clean out. And what that looks like is, I guess I should start from the top. So
Yes, tell us.
basically, I have some automatic filters set up where
Smart.
internal emails go to an internal folder. So the managing editor is emailing like I got to pay attention to that first. So internal goes there, and then there's a folder called good PR. And
Nice.
basically,
Okay.
yeah, it's any publicist with whom I have an ongoing relationship or who has been helpful or who has, clients that are of
Hmm.
particular interest to Inc. So they all go in, and it's not a high bar, frankly. Like it's like if we work together and like it wasn't awful, like you're probably gonna go in good PR.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. So you want to get in that folder,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to get in that folder. And then
Hmm.
the broader inbox is like it's just, that's where a lot of the pitches from people I don't know end up.
Uh-huh.
So like once a week, sometimes once a month, depending on what season we're in terms of busyness, I'll go through and just speed read through the whole thing, through all the
Okay.
unreads, and
Just see what's in there.
just see
Take a
what's in there.
spin. Take a
Yeah,
spin.
if there's something that catches my eye, I'll read through it, and if I can make a decision quickly about it, I'll send it along and assign it right from there. So
Hmm.
like reporters will get a lot of like 11 p.m. emails for me because like
That's when you got
that's when I'll
time.
have time to do it sometimes.
That's when you have time. I
Yeah.
understand. I understand.
So once I've kind of skimmed through and looked for anything relevant or useful, or there'll be some things that are like, reports or companies that I want to keep my eye on. Like, let's say there's a climate tech company, I'll put them in, my green growth folder. Or if there's a healthcare tech, that's come out that looks interesting, I'll put that in the health science folder. So really it's like a periodic cleanouts and skimming.
Okay. So it doesn't sound like you subscribe to this inbox zero camp.
No, I don't. I don't. I
No, no.
actually keep everything unless it's like it truly
Me
useless.
too.
Yeah,
I'm
because I
like,
like to
you never
search it.
know. You never
Yeah, and
know.
yeah, and so many times like we've been in a meeting and we're like, "Hey, we could really use a story on this topic or this industry. Does anyone have anything good?" And I'll go and I'll search some keywords in my inbox and I'll come up with some stuff. And so I keep it all.
Lots of reporters, lots of journalists do exactly that. Your inbox is your own personal Google to find those folks. Yeah. Now, speaking of finding those folks, are there any particular sources you're constantly needing, Tim, where you're like, I wish I had more of those people at the ready? Clearly not authors, I imagine.
Yeah, that's a good question. It kind of depends on what project I'm working on at any given time. For many years,
Mm-hmm.
I ran our front of book section in print. For those that don't know, front of book is like New York Magazine has The Intelligencer, and Inc.'s version of that is Insider. But there were certain rubrics or recurring columns that I always needed, like mentorship stories, for example. So it's more based on topic that I'm always looking for rather than industry. Because like for industry, I think we just like take a different tack when we report that out. If I assign a story about marketing and it's about a specific kind of marketing, I'm going to tell my reporter to talk to your marketing contacts, look through the trades, look through the databases we have access to, and put out a quoted request. Used to be Haro, but now
Oh
it's
God,
quoted.
whatever
Yeah.
they now changed it. No one has mentioned that by name on this podcast that I can recall. I'm sure
Really?
people will tell me if I am wrong. But opinion on Haro. Do you find it ever of value? Are you ever on there?
It is one of those things that I count myself lucky to be able to outsource to reporters now, because
Nice.
they do. The way Haro worked is it really would kind of flood your inbox a bit,
Yes.
which is helpful. Which is, let me tell you, when you're
If
down
you're
to the wire
looking,
and you
then
need a source,
yeah, it's going to get you.
it's great. It's great to see, but then it's at scale. If you're doing that for every story, it's tough. But
Oh, you'd be dying, I imagine.
as a service, I think it's a great idea, and I think Quoted's take on it is probably like just a better user interface.
Time will tell what decision we'll do with Haro as they're now changing it or whatever. Anyway, we're not here to talk about PR software tools because that's a whole other spiral of things, Tim. But for you, how do you decide on a story? As in, we're going to run with that, or I'm going to sign that. I imagine just being as the editor, senior editor, have the ultimate decision on that. Is there a way in which you consider how a story is basically greenlit?
Yeah, there's a series of metrics.
Okay. Ooh, tell us.
Yeah. So basically, I would call them a series of filters. So two big filters. Number one is the subject. Like, let's say it's a business. Are they based in the United States, and are they privately held? So like, that's if we're just, if someone's like, hey, I want to do a profile on this business. Let me just run through that first, actually, because that's like one of the big things. So US based, privately held. And then are there what we would call success metrics that are present in the pitch? What's like, what is
Success.
the story?
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
why should we be talking about this story or this business now? And why should Inc. be saying something about it? And what should we be saying about it? So that's the biggest thing, is like, is this story actually for us? Is this business actually relevant to our readership? And then from there, so those are kind of like pie in the sky. And then from there, if we're like, okay, yeah, like they passed that test, then we drill down into, all right, who is this company? Like, is there any other news about them? Like, are there other ways to verify that they are who they say they are? How much funding do they have? Who are they? Because we're a business magazine, like,
Yeah,
do they
exactly.
have notable investors? Like, did Tim Cook invest? That's worth paying attention to, because he is someone who's charged with running the most valuable company in the world. So there's something there. And then, do they have revenue? Do they have profits? How big is their business? Like, so a lot of that really gets into, a lot of pitches, frankly, just need to be reported out. I think the biggest problem with a pitch is if you haven't already talked to the publicist at least, but preferably the subject, and just kind of done all the reporting already, because otherwise there's so many things that for us that can basically spike a story if we find out down the line that, like, yeah, it's a great story, but it turns out we're missing, the business metrics that make this company worth talking about. And it's not that unsuccessful companies aren't worth talking about and like plumbing for insights, but that's just a different story. So we need to know that from the outset.
Today's interview will continue after this brief message brought to you by OnePitch. Are you curious to learn about the unique ways OnePitch helps brands engage with the right journalists? Head to onepitch.co and create your own custom media list in 5 minutes or less. Now back to today's episode.
So then to help, given the publicists who are thinking, well, how do I pitch that? Do you like a pitch that includes that up front? Like, oh, hey, Tim, by the way, I can provide you with revenues, profits, growth, blah, blah, blah. Like, do you want to hear that up front?
Yes. In
Great.
fact, not only do I want to hear it up front, just right in the pitch.
Put it in there. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, and I think more publicists need to realize this in the business world, we're going to find it out most of the time, no matter what. You're just making us work harder for it. So if you can be honest with that up front, we can spend more time developing the actual story.
There you go.
And gaining insight and context into those numbers.
This is why I always recommend in pitches, what are the assets you have available? Hey, Tim, I have headshots of people here, boom, revenue numbers here, below, 3 customers you can speak to, this, and this name, just like plating the story, basically. So you know, as the writer or reporter or editor, like, oh, cool, like this is already baked for me.
Yep. Tell me what's on the menu so I can pick it.
Exactly. Tell me what's on the menu. Yes, Tim. Okay. Tim, do you have a pitch by chance that you're like, ooh, that's one I really wanted to respond to? As an example, like you want to look at your inbox right now? Maybe you're like, none.
I'll do it.
But if you,
do you want me to look
we're
at
here,
the PR or the general?
yes. Let's look in the good folder. Let's look in the good folder.
Okay.
Yeah. What's in? So we want to know like subject lines. By the way, how are subject lines for you? Is that a big key indicator for you?
So like subject lines, I think it's sort of it's kind of hard for me to say like, this is what you should and shouldn't do for subject line, because the way and the way everyone views subject lines is different across every device and every program. So like the subject line on my phone might show incompletion and I might be able to read the whole thing. But like, on the desktop email client, it doesn't actually show much. So what I'm really looking at there is the preview. So I'm actually just kind of reading the first couple lines of the message. So I think subject line is like, give me like a few keywords. Like if there's someone specific that's going to grab my eye, like if you're representing, sorry to keep going back to Apple, but it's the easiest, but Steve Jobs, right?
Yeah.
Like if you've got Steve Jobs, tell me exactly what you want in 3 words. Interview Steve Jobs, right?
Yes,
like,
that will get you.
And then,
sure.
Yeah, and like just use the subject line, like just grab it, pretend it's a tweet, but not a full tweet. Just grab my attention and get me to open it. And then the first line should be, a TLDR, like who you are, what you want, why you want it, and why us. And then go into like the menu and what you have to offer and the details.
Give me the menu. Okay. Do you have an example, not naming names, of a bad pitch? Not those link building ones, but yeah.
Yeah. Anytime you're kind of like demanding or naggy, like if you keep saying following up again, it's like, okay, yeah, like you and 700 other people. You know what I mean? At scale, when you think about it, like you spam my inbox by doing a mail merge, and everyone else in your industry, in theory, has probably also done that. So think about how many things I have to look at, and like, is it really worth raising the stakes like that? Is it really going to work in your favor to like introduce tension into it? Or maybe you need to say it differently so that you're grabbing my attention. Like think about it, like on my end, if an article doesn't do well, like not that traffic's the only thing I pay attention to. I think
of course
that's a whole other conversation. I think that's a silly thing to do, but like if I look at an article and it performed really badly, am I going to say, well, people just same article up again, and with like adding on another line and being like, hey, world, just want to make sure you saw this, like, because I think it's important? Or am I going to think about how to present it differently so that people actually engage with it? So someone sent me, I won't say who, but someone sent me a pitch that said Beam times Dole Super Greens. I'm like, okay, that makes me pay attention because that's 2 big companies. So
yeah.
Even if I can't use them, I'm paying attention because I know you're representing people who are paying you a lot of money. And the other thing is I'm thinking like a business editor. So I'm not just thinking about it like, I'm also thinking like, okay, like they trust you to represent them. So you're someone I want to pay attention to because they have their pick of publicists, right? Because they've got a big budget. Obviously it's not that simple, but if you can
hope it's a good sign. It's a good indicator that you got someone who's a top player. Okay.
It's drawing me in.
Okay. Now for our rapid fire questions, Tim. Here we go. Video or phone interview?
Video.
Bullet points or paragraphs?
Bullet points.
I bet I know the answer to this, but short or long pitches?
Short.
And how short? You said bullet points, so like 3?
3 bullet points or a paragraph.
1 follow-up or multiple? Not with tone, I'm sure.
Yeah, this is tough. I think multiple is fine, especially because like if it is pressing and I'm not getting to it, it's like, yeah, you should keep following up. But, after the first couple of times, maybe you should try and find my phone number or like try and get a hold of me a different way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even on LinkedIn. I look on LinkedIn every once in a while. I check LinkedIn messages.
Oh, me
I actually
too,
hired an
but
intern recently because she messaged me on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Oh. I find LinkedIn though is so freaking spammy though now. It's so sad.
Yeah.
It's disaster because it's again back to, can I have my SEO links? I can't tell you how many people think they're going to 12x our revenue because some magical tool. I don't know.
I know.
It's really shocking. Back to our list. Images attached or Dropbox zip file.
This goes back to technical stuff, but probably I think a link, like a drive link or a zip file.
Yep, perfect. You just mentioned it with LinkedIn, but email or XDM, or formerly known as Twitter, whatever we're calling it. Actually, any DM. Maybe it's Instagram, people talk about that.
Yeah, I am no longer on X. I am on it.
Me neither.
My account exists. I'm boycotting it.
Yeah.
So I'm on Threads, and I like it.
Smart.
You should join us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would respond to a Threads DM. Yeah.
Okay. Press release or media kit?
Press release.
Press release. Okay. What time do you normally read pitches, if at all?
Later in the evening, typically.
Okay. Later evening. Yes, your 11 p.m. emails to your reporters. Okay.
Yeah, after hours.
After hours. Okay. And we already talked about sources. So, Tim, are there any last things you want to celebrate, promote, tout? Like, how can we be your PR people for a second?
I think there's so many exciting things happening at Inc. right now. We have a new editor-in-chief that just started last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm super excited to watch his vision unfold and to help that happen. I think stay tuned. I think, I wouldn't say we're in stealth mode right now, but we got a lot of things cooking that on the horizon. So
okay. My chess instructor calls it cooking with grease. We're cooking with grease.
We're cooking with grease. Yeah.
With grease. Then stay tuned. Tim Crino, thank you for being here today. Senior editor of Inc. magazine, everybody.
Thank you for having me.
Don't send him well, let me think. Let me think what we could, he'll be get in that good folder. That's all I can say. Get in the good PR folder.
In the good folder. And I think the best way to do that, if I could offer a tip.
Please.
You said something earlier about how we don't have to be friends. I think it's great
we don't.
when we are friends. I think on my end of things, I've been a publicist in the past. I've been a journalist for a long time. And I think having been on both sides of it, this relationship works best when it is a relationship.
Yes.
And when you can, you're in the middle of you're in the middle of a client and a publication. The best way to navigate that tension is with an ally. And so if you and the journalist are seeing each other as on the same team, right? Because the idea is the story, and the publicist has to serve their client, of course, but the idea is to do good work here, right? So there's no reason not to be friends. Use your expense account. I'm just kidding. But form a relationship. It's we're people too. We want to be friends.
We are people.
Yeah.
We are people. I think that's the biggest thing.
And then when
we're all people behind these inboxes,
Yeah. And then when we're looking to fill a story, or we're scrambling at the last minute, we call you first because, we have a relationship. We can call you and be hey, who do you know? Or could one of your clients fill this? And that's how a lot of opportunities happen for us is we know a publicist who knows someone or knows someone and they make it happen last minute.
See, look at that.
Yeah.
Thanks for all your gems of wisdom, Tim. Appreciate it so much. And as I said, we all just want to get in the good folder.
Yeah. Get in the good folder.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
All righty. Take care.
Thank you for listening to this week's Coffee with a Journalist episode with Tim Crino, Senior Editor at Inc. For more exclusive insights about the journalists on this podcast, subscribe to our weekly podcast newsletter at onepitch.co/podcast. We'll see you next week, but until then, start great stories.